Welcome to the Economy and Politics Show. It's Friday, September 4, 2020. It's a weekend already beginning to take shape, and I guess the first weekend for the month of September 2020 as we enter the Ember Month period. Wherever you are in Nigeria and across the world, welcome to the conversation. Let's first give you the lineup for today as we look at the political space. Subsidy debate. We want to take you back to the subsidy debate in Nigeria, and after that debate, we'll go to the politics and market forces. We know that Nigeria has always been at that corner of trying to define itself between political strategy and, of course, the impact of market forces. We'll just take a look back again at the executive and legislature coordination in this current dispensation. Nigeria and Ghana's relationship is one thing that needs to be quickly resolved, and there have been some issues that needs to be addressed. We'll take a brief look at that. And of course, during the week, we had the second term swearing in of Dr. Akinwunmi Adesina as the president of Africa's Development Bank. Just a brief insight into that and what it foretells for Africa. Before we begin our conversation, let's take a breather, and then we'll return. We'll take the stretch.
When we first met, the first question I asked was,
where have you been all my life?
Since then, we have taken every step together.
Especially when the kids were schooling abroad. Oh, how we made it through those years.
When we shared the same passion,
the same drive,
and the same vision to succeed. Let's help you achieve your visions and aspirations, milestone by milestone. FCMB, my bank and I.
Welcome back, and let's take you back on the evening of Friday, December 14, 2018, precisely 7 p.m. Nigerians across the globe were glued to their television sets to watch 5 candidates then for the office of the Vice President debating the economy and political space ahead of the 2019 general elections. We all know that elections had President Muhammadu Buhari winning a second term with his Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. We want to take you around the debates and what the whole concept of subsidy, how they were going to approach it, and then come into this whole conversation. The candidates, major candidates that were in that debate were Alhaji Ganiyu Galadima, the VP candidate of the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, Mrs. Khadija Abdullahi, Vice President of presidential candidate for Alliance for New Nigeria, and incumbent Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, All Progressive Congress Party. Mr. Peter Obi was the candidate for the People's Democratic Party, and Mrs. Omar Getso was the candidate for the Youth Progressive Party. It was a debate full of fireworks, for those that remember it. The reeling of figures and statistics expectedly brought the clash of ideas over the management of the economy. And we just take you through how they viewed one of the major issues of contention, even till today, which is petroleum subsidy. Alhaji Ganiyu Galadima of the ACPN said if his party was voted into power, they would do away with subsidy. That was their focus. They would take it off. The regulation of the petroleum sector would be very key for them, and they would use that to attract new investments into the industry. He believed the subsidy was benefiting the rich at the detriment of the low-income class in the country, and his party would scrap it once if they were elected into office. For Mrs. Khadija Abdullahi of the ANN party, she shared that the petroleum subsidy has been fraught with corruption over the years in the country, which required strong institutional framework. She said the masses were not getting any value from the subsidy, and the focus of our party, if elected into office at that time, would be to drive an aggressive diversification of the economy from oil dependency. And then the ANN VP candidate also shared that her party will reallocate the amount budgeted for subsidy to address the infrastructure issues in the country and drive other sectors of the economy that will have wider impact on the populace. For incumbent Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the part of the challenge in the petroleum subsidy debate was the abuses and the corruption which was prevalent even in past administrations. He said under the All Progressive Congress government currently, the state oil company, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, has been the sole importer bearing the cost. The Vice President asserted that there was no country in the globe that did not provide one form of subsidy support for its citizens. He argued that if petroleum subsidy was removed at that time, Nigerians may be left to pay as high as 200 naira and above per litre for PMS, that's premium motor spirit, which will have adverse impact on the citizens. Vice President Osinbajo maintained that at the moment, the federal government was addressing the economic issues to boost the purchasing power parity of the citizens, as the petroleum subsidy will not be there for long. On his part, the major opposition party then, Mr. Peter Obi, the vice presidential candidate, believed the petroleum subsidy was another way of subsidizing inefficiencies. He decried the fact that the subsidy payments made were higher than the budgets for healthcare and education sectors annually. Mr. Peter Obi said the right thing that must be done in terms of the policy with the subsidy removal and it must be channeled to human capital development that will address the plight of over 80 million Nigerians. He made a strong point that the right policy framework, the price of the PMS will not be as high as being posited if that is done. On our part, Mrs. Umar Getso, the vice presidential candidate then of the YPP, in her view shared that the issues around petroleum subsidy have remained a controversy considering the 2012 protest in Ojota, Lagos that greeted the removal of subsidy by former President Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. She alluded to the statement credited to President Muhammad Buhari that petroleum subsidy is a scam. Yes, that's what she said. And it has not benefited the masses, but only aided corruption. So let's talk a bit about this whole issue of the subsidy. The candidates at that time agreed that there are forms of subsidies that can be provided, but the petroleum subsidy itself was not totally benefiting the populace. Current administration came in with that notion of a pro-state approach and believed that the poor and vulnerable were very important in the country and need to be protected. So over time, this administration had believed that they have to ensure that they boost the purchasing power parity of citizens and ensure that any market reform is not adversely impacting the populace. And so today we've seen that gradually the whole subsidy regime is being eased out, and that is why we're seeing currently the price of premium motor spirit going to 151, and independent petroleum marketers are even pushing to raise their own price to 162 naira. It has its own impact on citizens, like highlighted yesterday. But from a political standpoint, it calls for more consensus building from this administration. Note that when you come in as a government driving pro-people policy, then you must take steps to make every step and decision a pro-people approach. And so this calls for this administration to reach out to all stakeholders. We now understand that the Nigerian Labour Congress, the Trade Union Congress, are all rejecting this step, even the Nigerian students, because of the implications. The implications are far-reaching, from increase in transportation costs to the impact it will have on consumers, goods, and even food prices, down to other services will be there. And so this is a call for a more consensus building approach from this administration, reaching out to all stakeholders in the country. In decisions like this, even across the globe, the political scene tends to be charged. We've seen it even in Sudan, where steps were taken on subsidy removal and how the citizens rejected it and carried out several months of protest that led to some kind of political chaos. 2012, we had the Ojota protest, which of course raised concerns for the administration then. And we hear some leaders from the opposition party calling for protests to reject this move. Every step or every constructive engagement must be taken with national consciousness and security at the forefront. And so we're saying that in this period, the democratic space should be opened up in a way that opposition party leaders can express themselves, but they must take responsibility to ensure that they are constructively engaging and bringing out points on why they disagree with this move. Also, for this administration, there's need for more clarity. Political philosophy calls for clarity and especially your ideology. So if you say that you are pro-people, pro-states, or you want to ensure that the social welfare of citizens are carried effectively, then steps like this must be explained, articulated, and effective communication with citizens is important at this time. Don't forget, apart from the removal of the subsidy, which is a major concern across the country, we also had decisions around the electricity tariff, which is, has been increased with effect for September 1st, but is following a segmentation for those that have 12 hours power supply and above, while those below are not really affected as factored in. But again, all these market reforms approach calls for engagement. And some pundits or analysts believe that this particular step should have been taken since, not now. I mean, it's been long overdue, as been discussed, the subsidy removal. It would have been done first term when this government took office, when it had that goodwill, or when it had an initial political capital to drive things. Trust for governance across the globe has become a huge concern. Edelman Trust, in its analysis, showed that government is among the institutions that people tend to have challenges with trust. This administration has its good intentions, but the challenge again over the years has been how you implement processes of removal of subsidy. The previous administration, in trying to carry out its plan to remove subsidy, assured citizens that they will invest the funds to social infrastructure and other areas that will bring succor to citizens. So the big question is the transparency, the accountability. How effective is it that with this removal plan, despite the rejection and all that, the funds saved from the removal of subsidy will be channeled to social infrastructure, channels to ensure that populations of people in this country in the poverty gap of about over 82 million people can be brought out of poverty, which is a core focus of this administration, to remove over 100 million people in the next 10 years from the poverty gap. How charged, how cohesive is the economic plan in achieving this? Currently, we have the economic sustainability plan, which is a good strategy in place. But we want a political consensus on this. We want more engagement and bringing all parties to discuss this and really articulate how it's going to impact citizens. Another major reason why this is raised as a concern, like said yesterday, is the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted the global supply chain and affected major industries in the country. From the oil and gas sector, which has been a worst hit, seeing major oil and gas companies doubling down on their investments, posting record losses in their quarterly financial reports, raises that concern again. Aviation sector has been also worst hit by this pandemic, amongst other sectors like the services, which has led to job cuts, pay cuts, and also impacting Nigerians. So that purchasing power parity, which the administration believes it can help build up, is being affected while this market force or market economic reform approach is taken. It's a pain, like some economists feel, that Nigerians have to bear, but again, this brings to the fore the need for transparency from the part of the government. How much is the government willing to cut down in terms of size, in terms of allowances, and what they get for themselves, from the presidency to the National Assembly, to the governors, to the State House of Assemblies, and even down to local government chairmen. So in times like this, it calls for leadership, accountability, but most importantly, consensus building in carrying decisions like this, because the pace at which the market reforms are taking are really fast and it's rapid. And so, of course, it's expected Nigerians will react considering how they're trying to grapple with this period of uncertainties. So on this move, it's a move that has been described as important to address wastage, to bring efficiency to the petroleum sector. But on the other hand, it needs consensus building to engage the citizens and all stakeholders to clearly articulate the end game and plan of the administration in channeling the funds to build the country, to address issues of infrastructure gaps, and also uplift Nigerians and ensure that the social intervention programs that we hear are accurate and effective and reaching out to those vulnerable and poor people. And most importantly and finally, it is also a point for more leadership and more communication between the president and his citizens. The citizens really hope that in this time of uncertainties, there will be more clarity in the political philosophy and ideology of this administration. Very, very important. This debate will continue as we know that it's a trying time and a phase for Nigeria. So let's get on to one aspect that has been interesting debates and conversation in the country. It's been the coordination between the executive and the legislature. So the big question is the 9th National Assembly cooperative, or are we facing another phase of challenges in terms of understanding and cooperation? The principles of checks and balances, it is important that the legislature plays its role in terms of oversight, ensuring that the executive is accountable and doing what is expected of it in driving governance. Also, the judiciary is also at the other end, ensuring that both the executive and the legislature are carrying out their roles effectively. So I'd like to bring some scenarios to show you that it's very important that Nigeria's interest is taken, especially in developments across the country. It first started with the Minister of State for Labor, who had his own challenge with the House of Reps Committee, looking at the 774,000 jobs that would be provided as part of palliatives in this period. There were a lot of tensions and misunderstandings, and it showed once again the need for refocusing on what is best for the country at this time. And for those that followed, it showed again that for Mr. Festus Keyamo and for the House of Reps Committee, Labor, allocating those jobs, following the issue of meritocracy, and those that can deliver and those that are in dire need of that allocation was important, because the intent was to reach out to those who are the vulnerable and at the poor level that need that job to move up the scale. There again, the issues of name slandering and disrespect to the role of the arms of government came on board, but it just needed some level of maturity and understanding between the two parties. And then, of course, the Minister of Labor also and the House of Reps Committee looking at issues around the National Social Insurance Trust Fund and other developments in the Labor Ministry needed to move from the normal drama to focusing on issues of interest and how to move the ministry forward. We also had the incidents of the Minister of Niger Delta, Senator Godswill Akpabio, and the House of Reps Committee trying to look at accountability, transparency in the NDDC, particularly over the whole allegations of spending without approvals or without costs, for ensuring that those expenditures were in line with the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Again, showed some wranglings and dramatic moments, bringing to the fore the need to refocus on what is important for Nigeria. Also, it did not end, but the Minister of Transportation, Right Honorable Rotimi Amechi, and the House Committee on Transport also had their own wranglings around allocation and the debt level with China, the agreements, and the whole layout of the contracts. All those again brought another dramatic moment. So in all of this, it's very important that the executive and the legislature have effective coordination in focusing on what are the key issues and how they need to be addressed. Globally, we understand that several times executive and the legislature could have their misunderstandings. But in those misunderstandings, it's important that when we have sessions of probes or reviews of activities of the executive from the House or even the Senate, it is focusing on the critical issues and ensuring that we get the best in terms of accountability, transparency, and governance. For example, in the US, we've seen how several times there have been challenges leading to budgets not being approved and states government closing, but it's always been around the issues, ideology, and approach to governance. Same in the UK, whether it's the Labour Party versus the Conservatives. So it's very important that beyond party lines, in this period, as we navigate a challenging pandemic, that the states, the executive and legislature should remember that the citizens are the focus. Their interests, their welfare, the transformation of the states to make it much better for them to live in is important and should be above their interest or any kind of pecuniary interest that is not of the good to the country. We make that appeal. Again, building consensus and ensuring that Nigeria is at the forefront of interest. Let's move on to the judiciary, which is also a major part of the arms of government that brings checks and balances. And it's interesting to note that the development in the judiciary has been around digitization. Having contemplated the computerization of court proceedings over the years, the endorsement of virtual court proceedings by a Supreme Court ruling is wise, as it has saved as a system of justice another catastrophic round of technical decisions around the constitutionality of virtual proceedings. According to the Vice President, Professor Akinwunmi Adesina, recently in a forum, the virtual court proceedings in Nigeria has become very important and a front burner of improving our legal systems. For him, we are at a point where at least we know that virtual hearings are legal. This means that the Supreme Court is satisfied that appropriate means can be found to ensure that hearings are public and that the press and indeed members of the public can assess the proceedings. For him, I think that an opportunity that like this offers us is to get rid of this issue of technicality as much as possible. As the Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Professor Sibanjo believes that, and is pleased that the Supreme Court did not even hesitate in saying that virtual proceedings are legal. It is really a breath of fresh air, considering the ways that they tend to magnify the issue of technicality to the point where you wonder where justice is. Speaking for the Vice President, Professor Akinwunmi Adesina said he's hoping that the opportunity in the virtual proceedings will also be an opportunity to dispense with several of the unnecessary technical rules that we have in our legal system in Nigeria, the laws of procedure, evidence, and all that inclusive. And hopefully, Nigeria will be able to get to the heart of trials and the heart of the matter such that we are bogged down unnecessarily by technicality, he said. He commended the Attorneys General of Lagos and Ekiti States for bringing the matter before the Supreme Court, asking the court to determine whether, having regard to constitutional requirement that court proceedings, save for some exceptions, must be held in public, and whether court hearings by the use of technology, by remote hearing of any kind, whether Zoom or WhatsApp, Microsoft Teams, Skype, or any other audiovisual or video conference platform are constitutional. The Supreme Court, while dismissing the suits themselves as premature and speculative, nevertheless said that as things stood today, virtual proceedings were constitutional. According to him, this wise approach of the courts probably has served as system justice of the delays and rounds of technical decisions around constitutionality of virtual proceedings. It may also be cautiously taken as a signal that the Supreme Court expects the lower courts to go down this new path with as little attention to technicality as possible. So for him, we are at a point where at least we know the virtual hearings are legal. And this is nice to know because it can help speed up judgments and proceedings in this period where we still navigate the post-impact of the pandemic and want to see how we can improve issues in our nation. These are the ways in which we can also drive inclusive good, because speedy trials and effective legal systems are part of how we can grow a robust nation, a strong, robust political system, democratic society, and a very inclusive nation. We'll continue on this conversation. Let's take a breather. When we return, we'll bring you additional updates.
When we first met, the first question I asked was,
Where have you been all my life?
Since then, we have taken every step together.
especially when the kids were schooling abroad. Oh, how we made it through those years.
When we shared the same passion,
Same drive.
and the same vision to succeed. Let's help you achieve your visions and aspirations, milestone by milestone. FCMB, my bank and I.
Welcome back. Nigeria, we know, is Africa's most populous nation and, of course, the key powerhouse in West Africa. One of its neighbors, Ghana, has also been a partner and one country that has continued to engage Nigeria in various levels. In football, sometimes Ghana defeats us, and I remember those moments, how painful it could be. And we also had moments where we defeated Ghana in senior competitions. And both Nigeria and Ghana have one thing. In the under-17 level of football tournaments, the world level, Nigeria and Ghana have won that tournament over 2 times. But let's talk about Nigeria and Ghana in terms of improving relations. Recently, there are issues and wranglings concerning the decisions by the Ghanaian government to place a higher tariff for Nigerians over there that own shops and businesses. That raised concerns, and the Nigerian community over there had reached out to the government to act and intervene. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Femi Gbajagbamila, visited President Muhammadu Buhari and took it upon himself and his team to go to Ghana, and that's what he's doing currently, engaging all the stakeholders, high levels officers in government, and even down to the royal traditional levels. We hope that these issues will be addressed because of the concerns it has. Don't forget that in terms of trade, Nigeria and Ghana have some understanding through the ECOWAS Economic Community of West African States. And in terms of education, a lot of Nigerians have school in Nigeria, Ghanaian universities and secondary schools, and we have a huge population there that are doing trade and business and even working there. So this is very critical that we resolve the differences, because Ghana is like a second home to many Nigerians. And if this issue of the businesses, those that own businesses and commercial sports, are not addressed, it could also begin to affect even the education relations we have and other levels of partnerships. So from the senior level, some discussions are expected more between President Muhammadu Buhari and President Nana Akufo-Addo, also of Ghana, while the team of Mr. Right Honorable Femi Gbajagbamila will continue the discussions and see how these issues can be addressed. Also at the foreign level, in terms of discussions between the foreign ministers of Ghana and Nigeria, we hope that will be cordial. We want to see more action in terms of steps in stemming these tensions, because we know that we can have a middle ground in resolving this. We need to resolve this because next year we're about to see the launch of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. So if these kind of issues come up like at this time, how will we be able to integrate trade and improve our relations within ourselves? We don't even need that at this time. Nigeria and Ghana are Anglophone countries, so we have to set an example for even the Francophone members of ECOWAS and indeed larger picture Africa Union. So it's very important that we resolve this issue, and we hope all stakeholders would work as seriously to do it. Let's move on to other developments. Of course, the major one is that Dr. Akinwunmi Adesina was sworn in for a second term as president of the Africa Development Bank. That's been the big story since last week, and it's a bright prospect to reposition Africa for growth and development. The future beckons, of course. I mean, in his words, today, rainbow stretches from the 81 member countries of the African Development Bank across the deep blue skies of Africa. The future beckons for a developed Africa and a much stronger and resilient African Development Bank. Dr. Akinwunmi Adesina is a man that has good ways and command of words and articulating strategies. His historic victory and winning his re-election was significant because of the 100% support he got among the Board of Governors. For Dr. Akinwunmi Adesina, it's a resolve to industrialize Africa, accelerate growth and development, particularly through the agriculture space, ensuring Africa can feed itself and become self-reliant and boost its productivity and competitiveness across the globe. So for Dr. Adesina, it's more of engagement in improving the state of the continent and reducing poverty, which is at the heart of his program. Africa is one continent that has a huge population of people that are vulnerable and poor. And through the AFDB activities, there are prospects of reducing that, particularly supporting entrepreneurship, the young people in the continent who are energetic, passionate about development and transformation, and also the areas of infrastructure like electricity, increasing the number of people in Africa that can access electricity becomes important, because in his first term, he was able to achieve over 100 million Africans at accessing electricity. In the areas of agro support and entrepreneurship support, it's increasing the level of people that can access finance, because part of the challenges for entrepreneurs in Africa has been access to finance. And that's one area that Dr. Akinwunmi Adesina will be taking seriously to boost the access of finance to entrepreneurs across Africa. So we wish him all the best, and we hope that this second term will bring more prospect for development, industrialization and growth of Africa, and also position us for better trade as we seek to implement the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement from next year. And that'll be all for the conversation today on a Friday morning. I know that Fridays marks the weekend, and of course the weekend is always set for you wherever you're watching from Nigeria and across the world. This conversation will continue next week. Of course, we have developments across the political space as it affects the economy. We'll continue this next week, Friday. But for today, we'd like to leave you with the fact that leadership is very key in driving transformation. And so let us always work together with leaders to make the country better. You can visit our website, www.prochange.com, to watch our videos, read our news reports and analysis. 10 a.m. today, we'll have an interesting conversation as we look at the unlisted securities and how they need to unlock the opportunities in crowdfunding for the betterment of the financial and capital market in Nigeria. Send your comments, your questions to news@prochange.com. Tell us how you feel about the program and also your views around issues that we've raised and your perspective around it. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day and stay safe.